The film opens with Nora performing a beautiful song at Luna Club, where a drug dealer named Manuel Alvarez and his partner are enjoying her music. When Nora finishes, Manuel compliments her and invites her for a drink. Nora, feeling flattered, requests a glass of wine. Manuel then instructs the bartender, Akeem, to bring the fresh red wine they had received the day before. As Akeem goes to fetch the wine, Nora shares with Manuel that she hails from Florida and is pursuing her dream of becoming a famous singer. Manuel offers her a permanent singing position at his club, exclusively for him, with a salary 3 times higher than what she earns in Chicago. Tempted by the offer, Nora agrees to sing for him. When Akeem returns with the wine, he accidentally spills it on Nora's attire, apologizing for the mishap. Though Nora forgives him, Manuel, enraged, stabs Akeem for his error. Nora, frightened, is told by Manuel to clean up and informs her that she will now only sing for him. The next scene finds Akeem's lifeless body by the water's edge. Later, in Los Angeles, 2 undercover LAPD agents, Mark and Phil, are shown getting ready to apprehend 2 drug dealers. While sitting in their vehicle, Phil talks to Mark about his new girlfriend with striking blue eyes, but Mark shows no interest. Phil then questions Mark about the tattoo on his finger, which is the name of his beloved ex-wife, Keila. The drug dealers arrive, prompting Mark to urge Phil to focus. They exit the vehicle, with Mark approaching the drug dealers. One of the dealers exits his car and approaches Phil with his weapon, demanding to see the money. Meanwhile, the other dealer displays drugs to Mark, opening a bag of narcotics and offering it to him. Mark cuts open a packet with his knife, tastes it, approves of the quality, and requests Phil to hand over the money. However, the dealer points his gun at Phil, threatening to harm him. He instructs Phil to pick up the bag, but Phil swiftly turns back, attempting to grab the gun. The dealer starts shooting, but Phil manages to protect himself. On the other side, Mark aims his gun at the remaining dealer, demanding surrender. The dealer urges Mark to stop Phil from attacking his partner to avoid being shot, but Mark disregards the command. The dealer then attacks Mark, who easily subdues him. After dealing with the drug dealers, Mark receives a call informing him of his brother Akeem's murder on the island. Shocked, Mark immediately travels to the island, attending Akeem's funeral where the priest commends Akeem's good deeds and prays for his soul. Following the ceremony, they visit Akeem's grave, placing flowers. Akila arrives, offering comfort to Akeem's grieving mother Yvonne, who is in immense pain. Akila also consoles Mark and requests him to visit her soon. Manuel is also present, expressing his deepest sympathies to Yvonne and Mark. He offers his assistance to Mark if needed, to which Mark expresses gratitude before Manuel departs. Mark and his mother return home, where she shows him some of Akeem's belongings. They reminisce over his photographs and past memories. Mark discovers a wristwatch and his mother insists he take it, which he does gratefully, wearing it. Mark inquires about what happened to Akeem, but his mother is unaware, stating that things have drastically changed over the last 7 years. When Mark returned home from the island, he assured his mother that he would uncover the truth behind Akeem's death. His mother, worried about losing him, advised him against it. Mark comforted her, suggesting she rest, before heading to the police station. There, he met Sheriff Nate Wayland, a childhood friend, who informed him of the surge in criminal activities since Mark's departure. Nate handed over Akeem's case file, hinting that his murder might be linked to a gang conflict on the island. He explained that it would take time to unravel the truth, but promised to keep Mark updated on any progress. Although Mark had doubts, he chose not to challenge Nate and left the station. Mark then sought out Akila, a martial arts trainer who worked with young people. They shared stories and discovered they were both single after their past breakup. Akila sympathized with Akeem's death, and Mark expressed his suspicion about the circumstances. Agreeing with Mark, Akila revealed that Manuel's arrival had brought significant changes to the island. In just 4 years, Manuel had acquired construction companies, hotels, and control over the island's economy. He was also involved in drug trafficking and led multiple gangs to intimidate the residents. On the island, the locals have a negative opinion of Manuel, but they find themselves depending on him for survival. Later, she discusses Akeem, who had started working as a bartender at Luna Club, which was under Manuel's ownership before leaving. Mark promises to uncover the truth about Manuel, and Akila warns him to be cautious, emphasizing Manuel's dangerous nature. Mark then visits Manuel at his club, where his men try to block Mark's entry, insisting on an appointment first. However, Manuel allows Mark in, putting on a facade of sadness over Akeem's death. When questioned about the murder, Manuel denies involvement, stating he was unaware of the details and suggests it was due to Akeem's clash with a gang. Manuel mentions a club frequented by various gangs and suggests Mark verify the information with the staff there. They discuss the changes happening on the island, with Mark urging Manuel to relocate his business elsewhere. Manuel boasts about his connections across America, but Mark warns him that consequences await. As Mark leaves, Manuel orders his men to bring in gangsters from the north to eliminate Mark. On the street, Mark encounters an old friend and inquires about a package he had entrusted to him for safekeeping, to which the old man confirms it had been buried securely. Mark goes to the location and digs up a box filled with weapons. At night, he heads to the club mentioned by Manuel, where gang members gather to socialize. Upon arrival, he finds a group of gangsters enjoying music. Mark switches off the music and explains that he isn't there to cause harm but to uncover the truth about his brother's death. When Mark demands information about Akeem, the gang's leader threatens him with a gun. Mark disarms the leader and persists in his questioning. In response, the gang members attack him, but Mark fights back, incapacitating them one by one. More thugs arrive and open fire on Mark, but he narrowly escapes. They pursue him on motorbikes but fail to capture him. Frustrated, they report back to their boss, who orders them to locate and kill Mark's mother. They break into her house in total darkness, searching for her with flashlights. They locate her bedroom and find her asleep in bed. Upon realizing their mistake, they shoot at the pillows instead. Later, one of the gang members discovers a photograph, which he pockets before leaving the room. The scene shifts to Mark's mother, who is safe at Akila's residence, discussing their shared pain, as Akila had also lost a son 7 years prior. Mark arrives and inquires about the first aid kit, prompting Akila to retrieve it. Meanwhile, Nate and his team reach the club where Mark had clashed with the gang members and discover the deceased bartender. Simultaneously, a police officer informs Nate about an assassination attempt on Mark's mother. Nate rushes to the scene and inspects the bullet-riddled pillows, with Mark joining him and entreating his help in uncovering Akeem's murderer. Nate expresses his worries over the situation, and Mark vows to put an end to the criminal activity on the island. Nate advises Mark to approach Nora, who had recently joined the Luna Club on the day of Akeem's demise, as she might possess crucial information or clues. In a separate location, Manuel feels despondent about the unsuccessful attempt on Mark and his mother. He questions his men about the reason for their failure, learning that they had lost track of Mark during the pursuit, and Mark's mother's house was vacant when they arrived to carry out the attack. Enraged, Manuel instructs his henchmen to eliminate them one by one, and the henchman complies by killing 2 of them. As Manuel prepares to execute the third individual, he reveals a photograph obtained from Mark's residence. Upon viewing the image of Mark and Akila at the beach, Manuel decides to spare the henchman's life. The next day, Mark goes to Nora's house and informs her that she seems too scared to open the door. Mark then presents his identification badge, prompting Nora to open the door. Once inside, he questions her about Akeem's murder, offering to help her leave the island if she shares what she knows. Nora breaks down in tears, confessing that Manuel brutally killed Akeem. She pleads with Mark to help her escape the island, and he reassures her that he will send her home soon. In the meantime, a new group of criminals arrives on the island with the intention of assassinating Mark. Taking Nora to safety, Mark brings her to Nate and requests that he assist in getting her off the island by any means necessary. Nate agrees and escorts Nora away. Upon returning home, Mark informs his mother about Nora's revelation, causing her distress. Mark comforts his mother as the new gang begins their mission to locate and eliminate him. Nate ensures Nora's departure by providing her with a ticket and arranging for a man to take her to the airport. Grateful, Nora thanks Nate and leaves on the boat. On a separate note, Mark visits Akila's house and encounters her mother. Suddenly, Manuel's henchmen arrive to carry out an attack on Mark. Giving Akila a weapon, Mark instructs her to escape with his mother through the back door. They flee into the forest as the gangsters open fire. Mark fights back, managing to shoot one of the assailants. Nate arrives on the scene and attempts to apprehend the criminals, but they evade capture. Nate contacts Mark, who reassures him of his safety and arranges to meet up later. When Manuel discovers Nora's escape, he becomes enraged and violently murders his manager at the police station. Nate uncovers further proof of Manuel's illicit activities and stores the evidence on his personal laptop. He reaches out to Phil to inquire about Nora, learning that she is safe, and they discuss the criminal activities on the island. Phil requests Nate to keep him informed about ongoing events. Mark arrives at his friend's residence with Aquila and his mother, who are warmly welcomed. Mark expresses gratitude to his friend for accommodating his mother and Aquila, leaving them there. Though Mark suggests Aquila stay there too, she insists on supporting him and accompanies him instead. At the church, Nate hands an envelope to the priest for safekeeping in case anything happens to him, which the priest accepts though puzzled. Meanwhile, Manuel expresses his outrage to Lisa about Nora's escape, admitting his fear of capture as an internationally wanted mafia drug dealer. Lisa, deeply affected by the chaos, feels overwhelmed by the unfolding events. He then instructs his associate to eliminate Mark immediately. The man follows his command and departs during the night. Mark and Ayla wait for Nate at a desolate location, discussing their deceased child. Ayla begins to feel overwhelmed by the memories, and Mark comforts her, urging her not to dwell on them. She expresses her fear of losing him again, but Mark reassures her that she won't lose him now. A car arrives, and Mark approaches it, discovering Nate severely injured inside. Nate informs him about being shot by Manuel's men and being pursued. Shortly after, the assailants arrive and open fire on Mark and Ayla. Mark retaliates, exchanging gunfire with them, though they escape unharmed. Aquila joins the fight but is subdued by one of the men who takes her with them. Returning to the car, Mark finds Nate on the brink of death. They share childhood memories and talk about AEM. Before passing away, Nate receives Mark's gratitude for his assistance. Mark proceeds to the church, informing the congregation about Manuel's criminal activities and Nate's demise, shocking the attendees. He implores them to assist in taking down Manuel. Once they leave, the priest hands Mark the envelope entrusted to him by Nate before his death. Mark expresses his appreciation and departs, determined to seek justice. The next scene shifts to Lisa and Manuel, who have seized Aquila in an abandoned structure. Manuel updates Aquila on Mark's perilous pursuit. Lisa subjects Aquila to torment, seeking information about Mark, whom Aquila describes as a courageous individual determined to confront them. At the police station, Mark informs the staff that he has assumed the role of acting chief of police following Nate's sacrifice for the community. He vows to avenge Nate's death by pursuing his killers. Accessing Nate's personal computer, Mark uncovers John's illicit financial dealings and involvement in foreign money laundering. After a while, two youngsters arrive and inform him about an empty hotel where they sighted Manuel's top assistant. Mark expresses his gratitude and advises them to steer clear of them to avoid any harm. Later, Phil appears and expresses his willingness to aid Mark, surprising him with his presence. Phil reveals that he has been assisting Nate against the criminal syndicate. Mark agrees to accept his help. Meanwhile, Manuel contacts Mark and arranges a meeting for the next day at 7 in the morning, instructing him to come alone and unarmed, along with Nora and with Ayla on Manuel's side. Mark accepts the invitation and enlists Phil to assemble a team to accompany him. The following day, Mark heads to the meeting with Manuel, while Phil sets off to locate Ayla with his team. Manuel arrives at the old sugar factory, demanding Nora's whereabouts from Mark. However, Mark insists on seeing Aquila first. Manuel disagrees and threatens to harm Aquila if Mark doesn't comply. Mark contacts Nora, while Phil finds Aquila, initiating a confrontation with Lisa's men. Amid the gunfire exchange, one officer is killed. Phil stages surrender before swiftly shooting Lisa. He then frees Ayla while engaging in combat with another assailant, eventually subduing him. After eliminating all the criminals, Phil informs Mark that Ayla is safe. Mark informs Manuel that Nora has departed the island. Manuel commands his men to eliminate Ayla upon learning this information, but there is no response. Mark reveals that all of Manuel's men are now deceased and proceeds to eliminate Manuel's top assistant. Witnessing this, Manuel attempts to attack Mark with a knife, leading to a fierce struggle where Mark prevails, ultimately avenging his brother's murder by killing Manuel. At the end of the movie, Mark and Ayla are shown sitting on a beach. Mark gives back her wedding ring and pledges that he won't depart from the island again. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.